All right, it is Wednesday, and I'm checking stuff out on Screambox again, which is a streaming site on Amazon Prime. It actually is a much better selection than Shutter does, but Shutter definitely gets more looks because of the money they put into marketing and because it has Joe Bob and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because Joe Bob and Darcy are actually in this movie that I'm talking about today, and that is The Barn 2. I had known about this series before because of Justin Seaman, the director, writer of this movie. He is good friends with my friend Joe, and Joe did a lot of the digital effects for the flaming inside the pumpkin head guy in this one, and I'd met him a couple times at the drive-in. I remember he wanted me to pass along the first Barnes retro video game to Cinemassacre, but they had no interest in it. I thought it was pretty cool. So the first Barn movie was kickstarted and had an amazing poster by Mark Schoenbach, who did my original poster for Midnight Show. I was apparently his first ever paying job. And now he's going on to do all kinds of fucking cool shit. That dude's stupid talented. So the first movie, it had like Linnea Quigley in it, and it became a pretty nice indie fave. It's got that '80s VHS vibe to it, and that's obviously the vibe that they were going for, an old school creature feature. That first one and this one both sort of remind me of Fredel and Ray's Jacko, which is a movie I keep asking Fred to let me write and direct the sequel, Jack O. There'd be two O's because it's the sequel, where there's a guy in a monster suit and stuff. Because even Fred used something like that in the he did a short form Boggy Creek series that was sort of like an X-Files type of thing, and the second to last episode had the Boggy Creek monster versus like a Pumpkinhead monster, and it was a cool suit. First, it was fine. You could tell its budget, you could tell their limitations, but it had that throwback '80s feel to it. It looked like a VHS movie. The narrative was not the strongest, but I think it was more about the creatures and the kills and all that kind of stuff. So when you review something like this, and not that I'm a fucking real reviewer or anything like that, but you go like, well, how are you going to shit talk this, yet you love shitty horror movies from the '80s and stuff like that? It's like that's talking out of both sides of your mouth. So when you look at the first one that way, you go, oh, okay, yeah, no, it's fine. It was fun, It didn't hit me the way that some of those movies do. Now, part two, I think, is a substantial step forward for Justin as a filmmaker, as a writer. The acting is still what it is, but for the most part, he's clearly trying to go in that '90s direct-to-video vibe in this one, because the first one took place in the '80s. This one takes place in 1991. For a movie called The Barn 2, one of my biggest pet peeves is there's not a lot of barn in the movie. It only is in the barn for a little bit. The movie basically has, it's got Lloyd Kaufman in it, it's got Joe Bob Briggs in it, it's got Darcy the Mail Girl in it, Doug Bradley's in one scene, Lloyd Kaufman, Kaylee Williams, who was in my friend Derek Huey's film Teacher Shortage, Drew Marvick, who I just worked with on Triple Xmas, and apparently when he showed up on set, he had blue hair, so they made him wear a wig, because he's in the opening scene. I was like, his hair looks weird, because I spent time with him while we were shooting that movie, and it was because they made him wear a wig. Ari Lehman, who was the original Jason for the first Friday the 13th, he's the kid who pops out of the lake. He's like a public access TV host. Linnea Quigley's character comes back. She got Halloween banned, but they're reinstating it in the town. And her house, when they show it, is actually the facade of the Myers house. Somebody built an exact replica, and they just filmed the facade of that. A sorority is gonna put on a Halloween event, like a haunted house in the barn, and the sister of one of the guys who died in the first one, she tells them that she wants to help, but she has ulterior motives. she knows that the monsters are going to come back, and she's there to make sure that she can rig the place up to make sure that her brother didn't die in vain. The creatures are cool. You've got like a pumpkin head guy. You've got like a crow kind of guy who's like a Native American looking, but it's like got the head. And you've got like a miner who's like a zombie demon kind of thing. And what I liked about this one is the theming of the barn where all these murders took place is those creatures. So you have people wearing like cheesy versions of those creatures who pop out at you and stuff. And yeah, it's got really good practical gore, which I really appreciated. It's funny that two of the kills in it are recycled props from Swamp Zombies 2 because special effects were done by Ryan Hickey, who's worked with me on a ton of stuff. He did the redhead's skull face. Or no, that was Joe Lascola did that. He worked on this as well. Joe Lascola is from the Movie Dumpster show. He's also on the show that I used to be on, but he used to do all my special effects for me before they all stopped talking to me. But the skull that was the redheads is in it. The head that gets split in half in Swamp Zombies 2, Ryan Hickey did. And he's also a dude who appears on the show I used to be on. He's also in the movie too. Mr. Lobo, who I used to work with a bunch, does the voice at the end of it of the overhead speakers for the warehouse or the I don't know, they're in like a tool store or something like that. But there's a lot of it's because it was shot in Pennsylvania. There's just a lot of people who I was like, oh, I know that person. They're all in it, and it's fun to see props that were made for me recycled again. Just like in Terrifier 2, to see props that my buddy Tony DeBartolus made for Midnight Show and for other projects of mine in the background because they filmed the whole third act of Terrifier 2 at Fright Factory, where I made the first Planet Frankenstein teaser, where we shot the Star Wars behind the scenes thing for that Ed Bassmaster guy back in the day. We shot Swamp Zombies 2 there. We shot a whole bunch of shit there over the years. So it was cool to see all our props in the background of that. So yeah, our monsters rise up from the well and they start killing people at this haunted attraction. Darcy the Mail Girl, you could tell that her scenes were all filmed separately because of her schedule. She's super busy, and then integrated into it. There's like that disconnect, but it also kind of feels in a way like it fits too, because if you look at like a Fred Olen Ray movie, he'd have a Cameron Mitchell or he'd have some actress or something, and they'd only have them for like a day, and they'd have to extend their scenes throughout it, so they just plug them in. It looks like they're in the same room, but not really. So in that regard, I think that this has a fantastic 80s Halloween feel to it. But if you don't approach it from that point of view of this is an independent movie, if you're not looking at it as like, oh, it's supposed to be like a direct-to-video 80s, 90s creature film, then you're not going to enjoy it. And that's the thing. Like, it's got a fun 80s score with some, like, probably local bands that were involved in it. All the backers for their Indiegogo or Kickstarter, I don't know what they used, appear in it either as zombies or when they're going through, the sorority girls are going through who to invite. They're going through a yearbook, and all the pictures are of different backers as well. I thought that was kind of cool. So you've got beheadings, and you got boobs, and you got gore, and you got practical monster suits, and you've got, known faces in it. Like I said, Doug Bradley, Pinhead, pops up for one scene to give exposition on the backstory of things, of where the miner guy came from, and Joe Bob Briggs shows up as the ticket taker at the drive-in, and he does his shtick about aardvarking and all that kind of stuff. And Darcy shows up looking sexy and gets her boob bitten off by a zombie. It's like, what else can you ask for? So if you are a fan of 80s and early 90s direct-to-video horror stuff, if you look at it for what it is and not try to pick apart the story and the acting and some of the effects and stuff, just look at it as like, no, this is like, all those fucking movies on VHS that Red Letter Media talks about or something like that. And if you look at it that way, this is a really fun movie, and it's committed to the bit. It doesn't, it has its winks and its nods where, the actors who are in it, who are known actors, they'll drop little things where you go, oh, okay, Doug Bradley says raise hell in it because he was Pinhead, Linnea Quigley poses with the chainsaw like she did in Fertile and Ray's Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. I don't know, it was fun. I definitely liked this one a lot better than the first one. And not even the first one was bad. I think it was fun, but this one shows a little bit more prowess. There's a little bit more interesting camera use. There's a bit more interesting practical effects and digital effects in it as well. There's some neat stuff that like the Pumpkinhead guy does, where like his fingers grow into like vines and stalks and like strangle people. And not all the actors were grating. Some of them were really funny. You watch a lot of these independent movies and you just go, and it's like, even if you're trying to do the 80s trope, some people who are like in their 20s who are in it probably don't know those movies as well, so they're not getting the pitch quite right. This one, I feel like they hit a much better, a much better balance with those kind of things. Not everybody looks like they have 90s haircuts and all that kind of stuff, but it's a low budget movie. But, and then they introduce some new characters, like there's a pig monster and stuff like that. There's like a corn cob head guy. All the monsters fuse into one monster, which is actually really funny. It kind of reminded me a little bit of, there's a 50s B movie, The Thing from Hell, and it's like this tree monster. Kind of had that vibe to it a little bit. But yeah, if you're a fan of 80s B movies, direct-to-video stuff and creatures and cameos and boobs and gore, I think this is one you should check out because it's fun, and it's also cool to see people who I know, personally, and I know their work pop up in it. Like, Joe Lascola is a fantastic special effects guy. He did so much cool shit for us over the years on Midnight Show and on Swamp Zombies too. Same thing with Ryan Hickey. Like, these guys don't talk to me. Mr. Lobo, people like that, they don't talk to me anymore, but you can't, my personal feelings on how they feel about me doesn't undercut how fucking good they are at their jobs and how well they know the material. If you're going to say, I want to make a 80s throwback movie, well, yeah, granted, you're going to fucking get the dude who does Movie Dumpster. He knows exactly what he's doing. That's what they talk about, It's what the guy lives on, is VHS movies. Same thing with Ryan Hickey and stuff like that, and Lobo's voice working in it. And so I think that was really cool. And if you have Screambox, check it out. I'm sure it's streaming elsewhere as well, but I thought this was pretty fun, man. I definitely... You always go into something where you know people involved in a bit more apprehensive way, because if it sucks and you say something shitty about it, you're going to look like a real fucking asshole, and then people are going to go, what have you ever done? And I'm like, nothing. I wrote and produced and acted in Swamp Zombies too, and Triple Xmas coming next year, I think, and a couple other ones. But regardless, this isn't about me. This is about them. And I think The Barn 2... The Barn 3 just needs more barn in it. That's the biggest thing, The haunted attraction is at the barn, but big portions of this take place at the town hall, where Lloyd Kaufman is the mayor, and Linnea Quigley's trying to get Halloween, canceled again because of all the deaths, and then Ari Lehman shows up and has a whole speech about a keytar, because that's Ari Lehman. He has a band where one of their songs is "Here Comes First Jason." I don't know. No, I like this one. I thought it was fun. It's always good to see Joe Bob in anything. And he filmed... Justin, who directed this movie, also made a movie called Cryptids. I don't know if it's out yet. It could be. I haven't checked. Where Joe Bob plays like a Art Bell style late night disc jockey, basically. And each anthology story is about a different cryptid. So he shot his scenes for that and his scenes for this apparently in the exact same day. I don't know, man. I'd love to be on a set with fucking, Doug Bradley and Lloyd Kaufman. Well, I've been on sets with Lloyd Kaufman, but still, it's cool to talk to Lloyd Kaufman and, and Drew. I wish he was in more of the movie. He's fucking hilarious. All the stuff he's done is amazing. It was cool to see Kaylee Williams pop up in this, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was fun. I thought it scratched that 80s itch, and I'm filming this in the week after Halloween, so I'm still in that kind of afterglow of Halloween, and this has a Halloween feel to it. Like, I remember when I had pitched a little inside baseball here. I had when I first started working at Screenwave, I had pitched a sequel, a follow-up movie for Cinemasker to make, and it was going to be called Cinemasker. It wasn't going to be a nerd movie. It was going to be an anthology where James was like a horror host, and each one of his old shorts would be remade and modernized, and put some money into it. And we just couldn't get him to commit. And then the ideas that he had and the ideas that Ryan, who owns the company, had were so different, and it was falling apart, and I wanted to make a movie. So I pitched something called The Last Halloween, which would be about these, and given this, I mean, they own the title and they own portions of it, but I've recycled elements of this into other things. It was about these guys who were in their early 40s in this town called Summer's End, because that's kind of All Hallows Eve is the end of summer, the beginning of the new season, all that kind of stuff, in Pennsylvania. And the town, nobody cares about Halloween. Christmas has kind of bumped Halloween out. There was going to be a video store in it that I was going to run, but then they gave my part away to Kieran, and then I wasn't going to write it anymore. They wanted a professional writer to come in, and then when we had those meetings, it became about it needed more inclusion, and we needed a gay female character, and we needed different types of people in it. And I'm all fine with representation, but when it's just doing it just for the sake of doing it, it's not interesting, and it's very disingenuous. But regardless, the joke I wrote in there was as Halloween gets bumped back and back and back, and Christmas gets bumped forward. There would be a guy. These guys are super obsessed with Halloween. They had the best night of their life when they were in 8th grade, and they've been chasing that high ever since. Now they're in their 40s. They're miserable. They decide they're going to go out trick or treating, and they're going to take back Halloween. But there'd be a dude who was another one of the guys who was on the Rental Reviews show, who's obsessed with Christmas. And every time he goes to the video store, he rents Die Hard, and he'll come up to the scene I wrote for myself. Is he comes up to the counter, and the Christmas guy's like, "Guess what I'm getting?" And my response was, "On my nerves," but that got taken out. But yeah, so these guys go out trick or treating, and they realize that they look like pedophiles, being 40-year-old dudes out trick or treating with kids. And people are making fun of them, and they knock on the door, and people are like, "Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating?" And they're like, "Well, I'm young at heart." So they decide to go home, and on the way home, they accidentally stumble on an occult ritual. Since Halloween's been pushed out, all the old like guardrails to keep the separation between the living and the dead have now been diluted. Halloween's gone. It's trunk or treat now, all that kind of shit. Kids can't wear scary costumes and all that. And the mayor has been doing this systematically on purpose to try to lower the guard. So when they perform this ritual, it'll bring back the old gods, basically. Very Lovecraftian, Samhain kind of vibe to it, combining a lot of things. And the idea was, my former co-host character, when I wrote the first draft of the script, has a super hot girlfriend that was going to be played by my former girlfriend who was on that show. And they talk about how they're together, but they haven't had sex, because she said they're saving it till they hit 100,000 subscribers. But nobody knows that. They try to, so they wonder, they keep making fun of him. There's no way that those two are fucking. And he's like, no, they are. So they stumble upon this ritual, and there's this thing, and the girl's has to get into the thing nude. And then I had to take all the nudity out because Ryan said that they won't let James do it if there's too much if there's a nudity or if there's too much cursing. So I had to take all that stuff out. But so they get the girl in there, and it turns out that she wasn't a virgin, so the thing doesn't happen. And as our heroes try to make a run for it, the guy who has the hot girlfriend falls into it, and it brings the demon out because apparently he was the virgin. And then for the rest of it, it's like the Peter Fonda movie Race the Devil. It's these dudes making a beeline as fast as they can through the suburbs, through through the woods, through graveyards, through people's backyards, on the run from this cult who's trying to bring about the end times. So when we were doing all that, I came up with like a story Bible and like a images that I wanted in it, and I pulled like how a movie should. Trust me, this isn't just me talking to spill tea. I'm getting to something, and how it pertains to the barn too. I pulled all these images from other movies that look like Halloween. Like why I love Halloween 3 so much is Halloween 3 looks like Halloween. Casper, Hocus Pocus, Lady in White, another movie. These movies that feel like East Coast fall Halloween, and that was the images that I wanted this to have. And the Barn 2 has that. See, we got around to it. But the Barn 2 has that. And what I like about it is like people who made it clearly love Halloween. And and there's a very specific era of Halloween that they love. And it is that 80s, 90s era, because that's the same era that I grew up in. And we look back at it with rose-colored glasses, because it does have that warm feeling of when things were still mysterious and scary and fun. We didn't have bills to pay and shit like that, I always look at people who like I always look at people who get mad about like YouTubers, like why things aren't, you look at things and they weren't the way they were before. And I was like, yeah, because like things were different when you still lived with your parents and you weren't paying bills. You get older and you realize, you look at this stuff and you're like, they've changed. You need to change too. As a man who's stuck running movie theaters for the last 25 years, I'm fucking adult man boy, but regardless, all that's a way of saying that I really enjoyed the Barn 2. They leave it open for a Barn 3, so hopefully we'll get more barnage and some more cool creatures and more practical effects, man. More like, there's some really cool kills in this. A person having the front part of their face ripped off and the head hits the ground and there's, the bottom jaw and all this shit is muscle and bone, and then the actual face is like laying there on the ground. We did something sort of like that Joe Lascola built for the Catch 'Em All Kill 'Em All trailer when he made Justin Silverman's head and it gets opened up like a bear trap. And I don't know why the editor on that used the take where you only see it from behind, because it was a really, really cool likeness of his face, and it was going to be neat to watch it open up, sort of like if you ever saw like Hatchet when they do that in the first Hatchet movie. But yeah, no, it's really cool, and like I said, 80s 90s VHS vibe, a fun script. You got a character who has like polio, so he's obviously supposed to be like the dude in Night of the Creeps. A lot of little in jokes without being like, remember this, remember this, remember this. Yeah, I'm excited to see what else these guys do. I gotta find Cryptid now, and I'll see if I can get Darcy to come be in one of my movies. I think that'd be pretty fucking cool. And Linnea Quigley's always great. And Linnea Quigley with a chainsaw being attacked by zombies and covered in blood is even better. So yeah, that's it. That's my rambling review of The Barn 2. So if you were involved in this movie and you saw this review, I'm not shit-talking at all. I really enjoyed it. I just I have a very negative mind in the way I talk about things, so I apologize. But good on Justin Seaman, good on Ryan Hickey, good on Joe Lascola. Mr. Lobo and everybody involved in it. As Dixie Lobo's wife, she's in the gorilla suit in the Gorilla trailer that I wrote and produced. That with the guys and the girl from the old show. So yeah, cool shit happens in Pennsylvania, man. We just need more of it. And let's bring back those all or nothing 80s VHS practical effects, gore and boobs. Not everything has to be safe, and not to say things are, it's woke. No, I hate that. It's just, not everything has to be for you. I'm an old man, so not everything is for me. But yeah, so that's my review of The Barn 2. Check it out on Screambox, and check out the first one as well. First one's more of an 80s vibe. This one's more of a 90s vibe, but still in that that sweet video store vibe. So yeah, let me know what your favorite practical creature effects movie is, and or if you saw this movie, what you thought of it, or if you want to see me figure out a way to make my last Halloween movie in a way where I won't get sued by the people who I used to work for. All right, guys, that's it. Have a good one.